together that all starts with the rapture according to the most vocal perspectives. That is called the pre-trib position, or the pre-tribulational perspective, that the rapture happens before the tribulation happens. I remember when I was a kid, I accidentally I shouldn't say accidentally. I was escaping my mother because she wanted to put me in bed for a nap, and I didn't want to take a nap. And so escaping her, I discovered some point in time that the way she tucked the covers around her pillows on her bed, one could sneak behind the pillows and hide back there and find a way to get yourself completely disguised by the covers and the pillows so that no one would be able to find you. So I did just that. She was chasing me to try to get me in bed for the nap, and somehow I squeaked away and went to her bedroom and snuck behind the pillow and laid down there. And about 3 hours later, I woke up and there was no one in the house. No one anywhere. And I tell you, I was like 8 years old and I had recently heard of the rapture, and I believed that my parents had been sucked away and that I was left alone. And I was getting really frantic until I heard the back door open and my mom had been outside and she came back in. And then I had to apologize for trying to run away from her, but I was very relieved that she had not been sucked to heaven. Because as an 8-year-old, I didn't know what in the world I would do at that point in time. Well, that kind of thing has been popularized really in the last 100 years. In fact, before the 20th century, no one really knew about the pre-trib perspective. It wasn't popular at all. But in recent times, it's become even more popular, even more vocal, primarily motivated by the marketing that it has had. Back in 1972, there was a film called A Thief in the Night. And then in 2000, the Left Behind series came along. And so the pre-trib perspective has become sort of the de facto position for Christians on what the book of Revelation is all about. There's just two problems with it. And the two problems are that, number one, the rapture is never mentioned in the book of Revelation. That's kind of a bummer. And then number two, the tribulation as a word, as a technical term, shows up once in the entire Bible. It's in a passage we're looking at today, Revelation 7, verse 14. And it's called the great, literally translated, the great distress. And the word there that's used is called thlipsis. It's a Greek word that means distress. It's found like 100 times in the Bible. And only once is it used in conjunction with this time period that people have called the tribulation. So I'm going to give you the biblical clarity, not the layers and layers of explanation that have been on top of the biblical clarity. Today I'm going to give you just the straightforward biblical clarity on what the rapture and the tribulation are. Here are some little definitions of some clarity here. First of all, on the rapture, it is a biblical teaching that a time is coming when Christ will return as king, the dead will rise, and his followers will join him. The major verse this comes from is 1 Thessalonians 4, 13 through 18. There is a time coming. I do believe this is a real thing, that Jesus is going to come. I don't believe that it's going to be something mysterious and invisible, that all of a sudden people are just going to be disappearing. The Bible tells us it's going to happen with a trumpet sound, and that Jesus is going to be visible from all over the earth, and that his servants are going to be caught up to meet him in the air physically, and the dead will rise physically, and we will somehow ascend, and then we will join him and be with him forever, 1 Thessalonians 4 says. Now, biblical clarity on the tribulation. This is something taught in Revelation. We're going to see it over the next couple of weeks, but it goes like this. The world is moving toward global unity apart from God. Great persecution of Christians, and cosmic catastrophes culminating in the outpouring of God's wrath. That is taught in the book of Revelation. It is something I believe is actually going to happen, and whether you slap it with the label tribulation or not, it's coming. Revelation does not limit this global unity through to God's wrath by any time frame, except for a couple times it mentions 3.5 years as a significant number. Some people have decided to put the 3.5 together with another 3.5, and they've come up with a 7, and so sometimes they say the tribulation will be 7 years long. However, in the midst of these things, the Bible clearly says this: all Christians must be prepared for hardship and persecution. The question is not, will we be able to escape persecution? The question is not, will we be able to escape hardship? The question, biblically speaking, is, can we trust God when we do? When we encounter those moments in our lives where we face hardship, where we face maybe even persecution, even if things in this country were to change so dramatically that we could be killed for our faith, would we be willing to stand firm, and would God still be there at that moment in time? That's why Revelation is written. It's written to tell us that God's in charge no matter what's going on. And He's going to win. So we need to be faithful and patient and alert. See, that's the major theme of Revelation. That's the big thing. And it's not the stuff we like to think about because, quite frankly, in cushy America, we believe that everything should be soft and easy. And when we think that maybe, just maybe, we will have to face persecution for our faith, we don't like that so much. And so the thought of a pre-trib rapture thing soothes people. But you know, it's only really popular here in America. And it's only been popular for the last 100 years or so. In the wide world of church history, it is a fairly recent theological development. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you directly to the passage in Revelation where it does mention the word tribulation, and we're going to read the initial stages of this tribulation, trial, distress kind of time. It begins in Revelation chapter 6. Go ahead and turn there with me if you would. And as you're turning there, I'll give you a quick synopsis of how we got here. Last week we saw that there was a throne, and on the throne was one who was holding a scroll, and no one was worthy to take the scroll except for the Lamb. And the Lamb we know is Jesus because He's the one who died to purchase people for God. And so the Lamb came and He took the scroll, and in chapter 6, He begins to open the seals on the scroll. And as He opens each seal, something happens in John's vision. He gets a new picture of something that's going to happen. And so there are these seven seals. And then after that, we will hear 7 trumpets next week. And then after that, we will talk about 7 bowls of wrath. And how they're layered together is not perfectly clear, but it's clear enough to let us know that it's going to get worse before it gets better. So, Revelation chapter 6. I'm going to go ahead to give us the big picture idea. Read all the way through 8 verse 1. 2 whole chapters. I know you can handle it. If you can't follow along because the lights are kind of dark, then I'll try to pace back and forth and not soothe you to sleep or something like that. Here we go. Revelation 6:1. I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror.